Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Horns Report here on KXAN. Plus, I'm your host, Billy Gates, and it's been a busy Monday here at KXAN trying to figure out all the moves that Longhorn players are making today. It is, of course, bowl season, so that also means transfer portal season. And here to talk about everything about that is KXAN Sports Director Roger Wallace. And Roger, we've just been going nuts all morning figuring out what players are going where, who's going to opt out of bowl games, who's going to go to the NFL. What's the latest when it comes to players headed to the NFL?
Well, I think the NFL, it's Anthony Hill,
Yeah.
the All-American linebacker. No surprise there. So we'll see if any more announce that. Anthony Hill, what a 3-year career he had. A little nicked up this year. Didn't play in the last 2 games, but he came in highly touted, and he lived up to the hype and then some. All-American sophomore year. Outstanding this year as well. The interceptions, the sacks were a little bit off, but they start game planning for number 0 there, and that happens. But no surprise, he'll be a high pick, so he's off to the NFL. And then obviously the big storyline, not only today, but in the days to come. And Sark said he's going to meet with players, kind of those exit interviews, and that's when portal decisions will be made. And it looks like we have 3 already that we know about. C.J. Baxter being the biggest one. I don't think either of us are terribly surprised. He just probably needs a new set of scenery. Had such a promising freshman year and then didn't play his sophomore year, came back. This was that run against Kansas State his freshman year when he rushed for over 500 yards. But then, that devastating knee injury in training camp kept him out all of last year, so it had to be tough watching this team make a run to the Final Four. Trey Owens, the other one, no surprise here, dipped down to 4th on the depth chart. The quarterback, second year, didn't play this year, threw the ball a handful of times last year, and it's a crowded quarterback room, and in this day and age, that's what you do. You go find a place that you can play and maybe get paid too.
Yeah, that with the Owens news, I think everybody sort of saw that one coming with KJ Lacey kind of supplanting Owens on the depth chart, and then Matthew Caldwell coming in as the main backup at the transfer portal. Dia Bell's going to come in as the highly touted recruit for next year's recruiting class, and so the writing was on the wall a little bit, like you said. Obviously, we wish Trey the best. He had one heck of a spring game before his freshman season in 2024, coming out of Cy-Fair High School, the powerhouse over in the Houston area. It kind of seems like anybody with a quarterback opening would want a guy like Owens.
Yeah, I mean, he had some good offers, Texas Tech, Baylor, among others. The spring game, that can be a problem for coaches, really. We're not going to see it anymore because we're not going to play it. But they light up the spring game, and everybody gets all excited. And then, coaches get asked about guys that may not ever play a significant snap. But you're right. And again, Sark's never going to stop recruiting the best quarterback he can. And so sometimes that means you get moved, and then they kind of surprise people with the Matthew Caldwell edition. We'll see if they do that again this time around. Do they add another veteran quarterback? As of right now, it'll be KJ Lacey and Dia Bell alongside, you assume, Arch Manning is going to come back. So, again, I mean, Matthew Caldwell earned everything he got on one throw.
Absolutely.
Against Mississippi State. We'll see. And we'll see what, I don't put anything past anybody, and so you have to wonder about KJ Lacey. Does he want to sit another year and then realize a guy like Dia Bell, as highly touted as he is, to beat him out to be the backup? So nothing's off the table when it comes to the transfer portal and guys seeking different situations. We used to equate it with being unhappy or if you didn't play.
Sure.
Now it's just the reality that you got to make the most of your time. And if that means you don't want to sit for 2 years, I think that's what people don't give Arch enough credit for is his patience.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, him sitting behind Quinn Ewers for all that time, I mean, that's definitely something that folks need to take into consideration when dealing with that, just his whole situation.
Yeah, and then a third, Melvin Hills the third is a defensive lineman entering the portal on Monday as well, and I fully expect more names to crop up. The question is, will there be names that have been significant contributors this season? And I think that's where the angst comes in a little bit when you think about the wide receivers, you think about the back end of the defense, and what will happen in that regard. And then guys like Hero Kanu, he's got another year. Will he come back? That would be a huge keep for Sark and that defensive staff.
Yep, and all this kind of leads up to the Longhorns bowl game this season. Again, left out of the college football playoff field, as we all learned on Sunday. But they are playing a postseason game. They will be playing the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl on December 31st at 2 p.m. Over in Orlando, Florida, against the number 18 Michigan Wolverines. And so all of this roster movement, all of this opting out, things like that, transferring, that's going to play into who's going to get a shot in this bowl game against the Wolverines. And Roger, I mean, we've seen this Wolverines team play. This coached by Sharon Moore. Texas handled them pretty good last year, the second game in the 2024 season. Obviously, teams are different, but just leading up to this matchup, not knowing who Texas or Michigan might have available, on paper, it should be a pretty good ball game.
Yeah, and we don't know what it's going to look like. For instance, what do you do with an Arch Manning?
Right.
Do you risk playing him in a game or playing him for a full game? Obviously, Michigan always has a very physical defense. Flip side, what does Michigan do with the Bryce Underwood, the true freshman?
I think that might be the bigger question.
No question, that's a bigger question because of the way he plays too. He runs the ball. He's not as big as Arch, and so that would be devastating for either program if they're quarterback. So do you treat it like an NFL preseason game? Maybe play the starters for a half. Give KJ Lacey some meaningful snaps. Let Matthew Caldwell kind of go out with a chance to play in a bowl game in a spotlight moment there, or do you just treat it like we want to win our 10th game and we're going to do what we have to do to win the game, and then Arch plays the whole way and they're not even thinking like we're thinking. But I just believe that the downside is too great compared to, yes, I know they want a 10-win season. I don't buy the whole springboard thing with bowl games. We've seen Texas win bowl games that didn't equate to a great season next year. We've seen, look at 2 years ago, they lost the bowl game at the Alamo Dome. Oh, by the way, without Bijan Robinson, without Roshan Johnson, without DeMarvion Overshown. Got handled, and then they go on a 2-year run. So I don't subscribe to that can be the launching point. I think what it does just kind of gives you a good feeling, but they got to get back to work in January regardless of what happens in that exhibition game.
I mean, and speaking of that game, Sharon Moore was he talked with reporters on Sunday after the Florida Citrus Sports Commission made their announcement about the bowl game, about Michigan and Texas both being competitors in the game. He said that his running back, Justice Hayes, might play. He's been out with injury. I believe it's like a knee injury or something, or surgery. Anyway, he's been out for a while. He would be a huge addition for the Wolverines coming back. Exactly. Like do you risk it? Like he sounded pretty hopeful that Haynes would be healthy enough to play. Whether or not he plays, anybody's guess. I kind of feel like Haynes is one of those guys who could have a potential NFL career, and nobody would blame him if he decided to sit this one out. Now, just going back to Anthony Hill, declaring for the draft, foregoing his senior season, foregoing the Citrus Bowl, that's really not a surprise. He's had 3 tremendous years for the Longhorns playing middle linebacker, and that's one of the toughest positions to play on the football field.
Well, he didn't play the last 2 games, too. So he's already dealing with an injury. The last thing he wants to do is have a setback. We don't even know if he'd be healthy enough to play in the bowl game. But to your point, there's no reason why. And I know people are banging the drum because of all the topics and all the teams that either Notre Dame, the Lightning Rod, because they're not going to play in the Pop-Tart Bowl, but then you've got some schools with coaching issues opting out of bowl games, K-State, Iowa State. But Kansas doesn't have a coaching issue, and they opted out of playing in a bowl game as well. So why would you risk injury in a game that doesn't mean anything? And I know there's those out there that say if you're going to play, you're going to play. And Clark Lee today was banging the drum at Vanderbilt. That's what we do. But all that changes if somebody suffers a significant injury. And I get that's part of it. But you can eliminate some of the factors here in a game that next year is way more important than where Vanderbilt's playing or where Texas is playing on the 31st.
Yep. So we do expect more people to make their decisions, whether it's declaring for the draft, opting out, transferring. The transfer portal opens officially January 2nd. It runs through the 16th. There's just one transfer portal window now, unless a coach leaves, and then you players have some leeway there, just kind of intermittently, depending on when those moves happen. So we're going to have to just keep an eye on all of that, and all of that is on KXAN.com, and we'll have that on air as it comes in. And it's been a very busy Monday when we've been taping this. I know I was working, trying to get stuff up on KXAN.com here. We actually started recording this a little bit later than we usually do, but it's been pretty active for not having an actual football game in about 20 days or so.
Yeah, and it's gonna stay that way. More information will come out as we get a little bit closer. And I'll give those guys credit that do, especially if you choose to play and then you enter the portal.
Right.
All credit goes to those players. Now, some might have reasons of, hey, I want to put one more game on tape,
Sure,
for this reason. But yeah, if you're gonna opt out because of the transfer portal, you can also understand that. You can start kind of doing your recruiting as well, even though until the portal doesn't officially open until 3 games after that game.
Right.
But it's again, I go back to college football. It's the greatest regular season, but the postseason is a bit of a mess.
It
more
is.
so with the coaching situations than with the players. But clearly, if these bowls mean something, yet everyone understands players not playing in them, that kind of doesn't mesh. So we'll see what that roster looks like on January 3rd.
Right, and you mentioned when the whole meaning of a bowl game, meaning of the bowl season, that sort of experience. Steve Sarkisian on his Citrus Bowl Zoom interview on Sunday, he mentioned that when this team got to the college football playoff last year and they played the first round game against Clemson, he kind of sort of lamented that by kind of putting it into we didn't get the bowl experience, which I thought was kind of weird because you're playing in the college football playoff. But at the same time, I mean, Sarkisian's kind of an older school type of guy who really enjoys that bowl experience. And so now the Longhorns actually get to have that sort of bowl experience. It's sort of a weird comparison for me because I'd want to be playing in the playoff rather than having a bowl experience, but it was an interesting perspective.
Well, to put it into context, for instance, they played, obviously the first game's not a bowl.
Right.
It's a game, but then they go to the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, right? Mm-hmm. So they get there the next day, they do a media availability with the players. The day after that, just the head coaches, then they play the game. Mm-hmm. This year, for instance, the Longhorns will go to Orlando on the 26th.
Right.
Game's not till the 31st, so they'll have a bunch of activities. It'll all be fun. It'll all be, activities for the players to enjoy. I think that's what Sark means. I can remember going to bowl games a week plus out, and teams were there. I mean, Texas famously back at the Fiesta Bowl back in 1996, they went out there like 2.5 weeks early. John Malkovich was the head coach, and Joe Paterno at Penn State said, hey, we go way early because we want to get out of the weather if it's a warm climate, so we go way early. So Texas decides to follow suit, and the Longhorns were out there forever in the desert, and then they just get hammered in the game against Penn State. So that was kind of the extreme. But typically a bowl week is almost a full week of activities, and I think that's what Sark means about the bowl experience. Mm-hmm. The difference is you'd rather have the experience of playing a meaningful game and only spend a couple of days in Atlanta.
Right. Yeah. Right. So yeah, it's sort of like what is your perspective? But yeah, so they'll be playing in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. I almost want to call it the Cheez-It Bowl just because I think that's a fun sounding name. And I also learned yesterday that it's the same the Florida Citrus Sports Commission. They run the Citrus Bowl and the Pop-Tart Bowl. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, a lot of them.
A lot of them do that.
It used to be the Tangerine Bowl,
right?
So they just went. They didn't want to specify one fruit.
Sure.
So they just went citrus.
It's the
and you can't take orange. Oh.
Right, you can't take orange. Yeah, just the whole gambit of citrus fruit.
Yeah.
Probably didn't want to go with blood orange either. It sounds a little too aggressive.
Well, at least it's not the Mayo Bowl. So Sark's
he's
hair
safe.
is intact.
He's safe. Yeah, they're not gonna like dump a bunch of citrus juice on him.
You know
I would
that
think.
I know it's a little silly, but that's the other part of this whole bowl thing. When you attach the names, it just becomes almost ridiculous. So then you start making fun of Notre Dame for not wanting to play in the Pop-Tart Bowl, and it just turns into kind of a bit there. So it's just a weird situation.
Yeah.
The bowls, are they on life support? ESPN has to have the inventory this time of year. That's why those bowls exist. I've heard talk about, well, put the bowls at the beginning of the season. Therefore, you play a good non-conference game. The bowls get their bowl, but you're not going to have the same spread out schedule.
Exactly.
The bowls start here in less than 2 weeks, and they go all the way past. I mean, Texas State's playing January 2nd.
Yeah, which is absurd.
You know, they get rewarded with a trip to Fort Worth. Again. I guess that's an upgrade from 2 straight years in Dallas.
Yeah. The Texas State, they're making their hay in the Metroplex.
And Houston doesn't even get a trip.
No, they got to stay at home.
They're staying home because the word was they don't travel. And one of the options would have been San Antonio in the Alamo Bowl.
Yeah.
But I think they could have gone down I-10.
I mean, you'd think, right?
Yeah.
You'd think. Gosh, anyway, so back to Notre Dame opting out of any bowl game. Want to talk about that, in a little bit of depth here. During the Citrus Bowl conversation with Sarkisian, Sarkisian was asked if they ever thought of opting out of their bowl game because they didn't make the college football playoff field. It appeared that Notre Dame opted out as a bit of sour grapes. Like, they had the guys that could have played. It wasn't like Marcus Freeman was going anywhere. You know, they certainly had the roster to put together to play in what ended up being the Pop-Tart Bowl, but obviously they're declining. Sort of seemed like they're kind of taking their ball and going home. Steve Sarkisian said, no, we didn't want to do that at all. We wanted to go have this bowl experience. Roger, I mean, you kind of see teams like that, or do you kind of see this as being sort of a trend for teams who just want to end their regular season and kind of move on?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we couldn't believe it when Christian McCaffrey didn't want to play in the bowl game back when he was at Stanford, and he took a beating, and then we started seeing players opt out, and then all of a sudden it wasn't that big of a deal. Now, Notre Dame's case, Billy, and I was on our SEC Plus show, which is also here on KXAN Plus, and I had some pushback with those guys for 2 reasons. One, obviously, they got left out of the field, which is fine. No problem with Notre Dame getting left out of the field at 12. Miami beat them head-to-head. The problem is every college playoff ranking Tuesday night TV show, they were ahead of Miami, and then magically they win every game leading up to it by an average of over 30 points, and then they're out. And the reason that we heard Hunter Yurachek say was one that on the face you say, oh, okay, and then you start thinking about it and you say, that doesn't make any sense because there was a gap between Miami and Notre Dame. That was BYU. Once BYU got beat by Texas Tech, which I thought conference championship games shouldn't hurt you, but apparently it does when it's convenient. So then they moved BYU down. So all of a sudden Notre Dame and Miami are next to each other. That's when they decide to look at the head-to-head. When in early November in Grapevine, Texas, in that beautiful hotel, wasn't there one man in that room or woman that says, we cannot have Notre Dame ahead of Miami right now?
Right.
Because of the head-to-head. Mm-hmm. If one of them loses, it's easy. But we can't do it now and then do it later. So why didn't they have that conversation then?
Right.
And that's the problem. It's not the field of 12. Notre Dame fans, obviously, they wanted to be in first.
Sure.
But to get dragged along saying, okay, they took care of their business as late as last Tuesday night, they're in. What changed?
And then all of a sudden the rugs pulled out from underneath them. And
then the logic behind not playing the game is they got gut punched. The players, or at least the captains, met. They decided that between the opt-outs, players declaring for the draft, it would not be their team. And that's what their athletic director said on the Dan Patrick Show. Yeah. This wouldn't be the team that was our team all year. So, yes, they want us. And then the cynics say, well, they wanted to take Notre Dame off the table for ESPN to benefit from them. And they don't have a conference leaning on them.
Sure.
K-State and Iowa State are getting fined $500,000 for opting out. They had One coach retired at K-State. One,
Yeah.
Matt Campbell went to Penn State. So, but I do think it's possible. I mean, we don't know what Texas's roster is going to look like when they go to Orlando. And so what do you do if you don't have any depth at a position and you're just playing because they told you to play? And of course Sark's going to say what he said. What if you're playing, you're going to be all in.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and that's what they're doing. So he's all in, wants to win 10 games, wants to close out on a high, a brand game as you talked about. But quite honestly, is anybody going to be worried about the momentum for next season if they're 9-4, and they lose with a bunch of backups to Michigan? And they're not playing Michigan next year; they're playing them in 2 years.
Yeah,
maybe.
2 years, right? Potentially,
maybe.
Potentially, yeah. That's up for debate, as we've talked about, and it's been talked about ever since the CFP rankings been coming out each week, and where Texas has been. It kind of seemed like to me that the weekly ratings. I mean, it's a TV show basically. That's all it is.
And that might go away.
Yeah, and it probably should, because the committee did this to themselves.
They boxed themselves.
I mean, yeah, like it doesn't seem like there's any sort of benefit except for ESPN to fill a half an hour before a college basketball game. And
you don't think every outlet out there will just come up with their own CFP rankings?
Oh, right.
I know it's not the TV show at halftime of a doubleheader at Madison Square Garden or a standalone or something like that. But I don't know if we'll miss that show that much in November next year. They can put another MAC game on or something. Yeah. But when you box yourself in like that, it just anything he said that came out of his mouth, you just said, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You just jumped him for a head-to-head that you could have jumped him for 6 weeks prior.
Yeah. Yeah. it just doesn't make a ton of sense.
And then one more thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let's go.
And then he said, Hunter Yurachek said, I told everybody to go back and watch that game. And watch the Notre Dame game from the first Sunday of the season. They knew that Miami beat Notre Dame. I don't think anybody on that committee, let's hope they didn't have to watch the game to decide that head-to-head they should put Miami ahead of Notre Dame. To me, that's insulting the committee members to say, oh, yeah, they really earned that 3-point win. We weren't sure if they did. I'm glad we went back to watch it. They beat them. Nobody's arguing that they should be ahead of Notre Dame if it's on the same record and it's head-to-head. That's the common thread. So to say we went back like, oh, well, you guys are grinding it out up there. You went and watched tape of a game that we know the outcome. That didn't change. But you had Notre Dame ahead of Miami because Miami lost to Louisville. Well, as long as they have the same record, and they did, they both had 2 losses when the first CFP rankings came out. Wasn't there someone in the room? People.
Be like,
this is what's going to happen. Notre Dame's not losing again. And how are we going to put Miami ahead of them?
Yeah. Yep. It just seems like it makes too much sense. I mean, like you're saying, like you go back and watch the game, it's not like Notre Dame's going to win that one.
Nope. They lost by 3. They lost A&M. They didn't have to go back and watch that game.
We watched this game 5 times.
It was a great fourth down play by Marcel Reed, and the result is the result. And Notre Dame doesn't, they don't get the credit for playing them close. They get the loss. And then they get another loss. And then they get banged for a schedule. Then if you go look at their schedule, the only non-Power 4 is Navy, and that's a service academy. Nobody's going to ding you for that. And all those teams that they played at some point in the last few years, they've all been pretty good, maybe minus Stanford. But you can't argue a Notre Dame-Stanford matchup. That's a brand matchup. And oh, by the way, Notre Dame has an obligation to play X number of ACC teams as part of their loose affiliation in football, and obviously they're full members in every other sport.
What a time to be alive, Roger. Like it seems like we've got this playoff system that's been flawed the entire time, let's be honest, but it kind of seems like we're getting further away from what it's intended to.
And we're setting ourselves up for next year. Right. Because Notre Dame's guaranteed if they're in the top 12, they're in.
Yeah, if they're the top 12, they're in.
So can you imagine the uproar if they keep them at 12?
And I believe the ACC champ is guaranteed in, correct? Like there wouldn't be a situation where Duke wins with 5 losses and gets left out. Like if they were to win next season, I believe one of the stipulations was that the ACC champ is in.
Well, my
regardless.
guess is they'll change the tiebreaker then.
Right, I would hope so.
Because that's how you get a 5-loss team in there is you have a bizarre tiebreaker. But but I'm saying if Notre Dame's sitting at 12 and their resume and 13 and they say, okay, we're going to let them in this year because of that, Katie, bar the door. But there's some people that think that as soon as next year they could go to 16, which I have no problem with because you don't add another weekend.
Right.
It's everybody plays
you
the
just
first
leave,
weekend.
You leave the buys out. Yeah.
And, you leave the buys out. And we saw last year the buys, they were no great benefit based on the results. Notre Dame and Ohio State both played the first weekend.
I mean, and I personally would like to see it modeled after the FCS tournament. I believe it's 24 teams get in, but I could see 16 being a good number, but at this point,
then you got to get rid of the conference.
Exactly.
Because you got to get on the clock earlier. With those games.
Yep.
So
at this point, Roger, let's bring back the computers. Let's bring back the BCS.
Maybe the computer would be the grown up in the room, and Siri would say, "We can't have Notre Dame ahead of Miami when they have the same record."
I don't think you can do that, Hunter. Like that.
All right.
Anyway, we're gonna get off track here. We're gonna end this Horns report here before we go completely off the rails. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. For Roger Wallace, I'm Billy Gates, and we'll talk to you again very soon.